Is this how we're starting? Just pumping the boobs up a little bit?
Yeah, that's what I like to do. I'm like, okay, are the boys in the right place? Are the girls in the right place?
I've just, you know what? I've just stopped wearing a bra altogether over the
Sounds
past
like
few months. But
my mom.
yeah,
Yep.
although,
Every time she's on the couch, boom, whips it off.
well, typically, oh God, that's funny. Typically, that's what I would do. But I mean, I guess I'm knock on wood. I don't know, I'm like knock on wood, not like my boobs are going to change. Like, knock on wood, I have smaller boobs, like as if knocking on wood's going to be like, help them not to grow. What am I
Right,
talking about? Like they're just, they
right,
are what they are. So,
right. They're beautiful nuggets.
well, they're sure. So anyway, but because of that, I mean, I shouldn't make my friends jealous who do have bigger chests because they can't just not wear a bra, whereas
Right,
I can. Um,
right.
but anyway,
Nothing wrong with
um,
a little bit of hunchback. Nothing wrong.
oh God, only a man says that.
I know.
Anyway,
Even the gay man.
right, exactly. How are you doing?
I'm good. As per
Yeah,
usual, I just woke up out of bed and I'm feeling good and
yeah.
nice to have little bit of quality time together and just understand where we're at and how things have been. Because every time I say it, every time we record, it feels like it's been ages since we recorded.
Yeah, I know, even though I talk to you practically every single day.
Well, yeah, I know, but also we
So,
don't see our faces. We don't
no.
do video, so when we see each other in video, it's almost like. And again, like the personal connection is everything in life, and the vulnerability, the transparency, the personal connection. So I think that's why having our podcast as a video segment and auditory just gives that full picture.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and just, I mean, we're recording this on a very strange day, I would say. I mean, I don't know if you, I didn't really want to necessarily bring up politics and the election in the
It's
States,
inevitable. It's
but it's
inevitable.
so inevitable and it's so natural because it's just what's happening right now in the
I
world.
know. I know.
Even though the state necessarily isn't the world, but it directly affects us for sure, being in Canada as our neighbor. So
Well, I just messaged a friend of mine in London who I mentioned to that hopefully it will come on the show in the future, and even he said that everyone in the UK is on the edge of their seats and is freaking out for us.
wow,
Like
wow.
it's even though London's not as far as other countries and stuff or cities in the world, like even the UK
Oh
is
yeah,
freaking out for the States and for us, and that
yes.
I think because I people that are listening or watching, like I call myself intentionally ignorant. Like I choose not to know what's going on in the world because if it's important, someone will tell me or I'll see it through social media channels. And so the more oblivious I am to things
Mm.
that I don't have much control over, at least I'm kind of in my own world. So
I
I hear certain things I'm like, that actually happened, you know?
I think that's also like maybe it's you're protecting yourself as an anxiety sufferer. I mean, I don't
I
want to,
think so.
or somebody who already has struggles with the idea of things that they cannot control. And so if you are
Yes.
constantly looking at the news as somebody who is um, does deal with anxiety, I hate using the word issues, but challenges
Or conditions.
or conditions that, yeah, it's harder to be one that watches the news and realizes that there's really not much you can do. I mean, it is the news, but
No. And a lot of it's negative too, though, right? A lot of it is to
oh
instill
God,
fear. It's to make us feel
yes,
we don't have control. So it's also the way the media is portrayed. Because if
yep.
the media, in mainstream media at least, was portrayed equal, like, hey, like here's all the great things that happened, and here are the things that we need to pay attention to and be aware that are happening. It's just a way of rephrasing language and tone. But in the way that the industry has been phrased for us to be gripped, we live in fear. So when we are
Mm-hmm.
feeling provoked or tuned in without knowing an answer, that's why they say, like, more coming up on breaking news, stay tuned, because
Mm-hmm.
that language makes you as a viewer sit on the edge of your seat in
Oh,
suspense.
for
You want to know
sure,
the answer.
for
And so
sure.
it doesn't actually help us at all. And the election is a perfect example of not knowing. Even if Biden had all the seats in the world, there would still be the same level of anxiety because the answer hasn't been provided officially.
Yeah, and there would still be, and no matter if that even happened, that there would be such a friggin' pushback by the Trump administration.
Yeah, well, he honestly,
I mean,
he honestly, he could fuck himself, and he would still be as stupid of an asshole as he already is. So, I mean, like,
well, and I can't. I honestly, and that's. I have no words. I have no words. Like I can't. I was just watching, as different states were coming up with, their not just projected wins, but I guess at this point they do know certain states that do have swung one way or the other for certain. And I just can't, I'm just baffled. I'm baffled by how close it is. Like I really, really didn't think it would be this close again. We're just, it's a recurring nightmare now.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's not over. It's definitely not over. But and then this just, I mean, also like trolls on the internet, on social media that just say shit just to stir the pot, and that's kind of like what the news does at times too. So there was I was sharing some positive news because amongst, I don't know if you saw my post.
I did, yes, and I saw it happen last night with some amazing.
So yes. There is some great stuff coming out of this freaking burning schoolhouse or whatever, however the hell you want to put it. But Sarah McBride becoming the first openly transgender state senator.
Yes.
Is amazing. So I posted about that, and I actually see, like, when someone just shares something that's, or comments on with something that's just not useful and that is just so pessimistic and negative, I just delete it right away. Like I don't even let it. I know freedom of speech, all that kind of stuff. But
no, but there's a fine line though. There's a fine line.
Yeah, and so I don't know this person, but I deleted the comment. I don't even know what her name is, honestly. I just deleted it. But she wrote, and she just said, what did she say? Absolutely disgusting, or this is a disgrace, or something like that, with like huge exclamation marks, like she doesn't follow me. It was just, when you tag certain tags,
I understand.
People find it.
Was this in our podcast Instagram?
No, it's in my personal, or not my personal, but my Rachel Rosen Yoga. And so I thought about responding, and see, this is the thing, everyone. Like I thought about responding to that, and it made me so angry that I wanted to, say something, either just like wow, or I don't know, how ignorant can you be? I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, I backpedaled, and I almost wrote something, and I said, you know what? No, it doesn't deserve a response.
No.
So I deleted it.
No, and I'm not comparing this whatsoever, but the foundation of picking and choosing where you give your energy to something.
Yes.
For example, like there is a patron in where I teach that is notoriously chronically late and has been spoken to by upper management, that has been spoken to the people that differentiate who is permitted to be able to access and to utilize the programs within the facility that I teach for, and they had one last chance, and they still pushed the boundary of coming into the class that I was teaching past the grace period of when they could come in. And so I only had a few people in class, so it wasn't disruptive, but it was still okay. I can either throw a fit and throw the room off for the other two people that did show up early and that were respectful, or I can smile, take the high road, and let them practice because they did show up, and then afterwards deal with it then. And that's exactly what I did. And so therefore, that individual will no longer be permitted in the facility because they tried as much as they could to take advantage of the period that they're given. Yeah. So it's the same thing, though. We pick and choose our battles and how we effectively navigate around them, like this woman that commented on your Instagram post. Right. They're not worth their energy because they're not going to change how they think anyway.
Well, and the other thing is, you not only pick and choose your battles, but it's such a lesson on reacting. Right? Like we live in a world where it's too easy to instantly be, and especially for anxiety, people that cope with anxiety or that struggle with anxiety. I mean, our reactions to that fight or flight mode are constant, you know, like it's such a, for us, I mean, or for myself, I should say, that quick to react nature of automatically going to the worst case scenario is too easy.
I know.
Right?
And
It's too easy. It's too easy to react in a negative way. Like, why is that?
I don't know, because I mean, I link it to PTSD. I really do, because it's a learned pattern from somewhere that happened far enough.
Yep.
And so luckily, because of the awareness and the work I've done, I'm able to identify where those triggers and patterns come from if they come up now, and to remind myself, okay, you know what? I might need to feed this pattern a little bit, like checking an email that I read or wrote to or from somebody multiple times to get clarification, to calm me down. But I'm able to stop it in the sense where I'm not freaking out, but the pattern of doing the action might still be there, but my emotional reaction to it is now neutral. Right? Like sometimes we have to just meet ourselves halfway, because it's no different than smoking a cigarette or taking a sip of alcohol at, you know, every 15 minutes in the day. It's like we need our ways of coping or soothing, whether if it's, and it doesn't matter what it is, but those are just two examples that I can think of that someone very well might do. For me, I know, for example, I need to play with my hair. Like if I don't
Oh, I
play with
see.
my hair,
Yeah.
I need to fidget.
Yeah.
I need to do something. I have crystals. I have like thinking putty. I have my phone constantly. It's just something to keep my brain activated. So we all have ways of coping.
Or sort of like a distraction. Like not, I don't, you know, it is a bit of a distraction.
Yeah. But I think for those of us that are elevated thinkers, though, that's very common. And those of us that are doers, natural leaders and doers, like the personality and the working nature of our brains. We have like doing, observing, strategizing, mediating. Like I'm a doer, so doers naturally have to be doing something to keep busy, even if it's just a fidgeting tool. Like
I'm the same.
Our brains are so rapid.
Oh, me too. And if I'm not like I mean, you can ask my husband, like, I mean, if I'm not doing, what was that? Why'd you stick your tongue out? He's cute, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, excuse me.
If you're not, if you're only listening to this recording, go on YouTube. I'm not going to describe what I'm doing. You have to go into YouTube.
I don't know if you want to. Yeah, sure. Do it. Do it. I dare you. I triple dog dare you. I lost my train of thought completely.
We were just talking about anxiety.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I'm not, you know, consumed or busy with work, or if I'm not moving my body, I'm cleaning the house, or I'm doing, like, I have to be busy constantly. Otherwise my brain does tend to take over. But with that being said, I mean, it's something we need to learn, or I need to learn how to be okay with stillness, right? And that's what we teach in yoga too, especially in Shavasana at the end of practice. So, I mean,
100%.
That's a huge, huge lesson. But back to reacting, I mean, you know, this woman commenting on the post, I mean, it's too easy. It's cowardly, actually.
Oh, it's so easy.
Like, it's too easy to instantly react on these platforms and spit something out by just, you know, typing it, letting it go into the frickin' ether, or whatever you want to call it. And you're not face to face with people. So, I mean, it's way too easy to do that. So, I do think to me, it's a bit cowardly. Like, who knows if this person actually would say that in person or to your face, or, you know, but with that being said, it's still obviously part of her mindset. And that's what's scary.
It's totally scary. And also, I mean, when we think about the way that people think and feel, I also like to think, you know, I don't know, anything that's very personal to one's way of thinking, regardless if they're in the majority or the minority, or maybe there's a kind of an even balance on both. There are certain places where you just don't bring those things up. And of course, social media is going to be a place for that. But I don't think I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I really don't.
Are they coming to get you? The alarms?
There's like 2 fire departments in my area, so
Oh, hilarious.
there's one like right down the street, and there's another one further down the street.
Yeah.
Downtown Vancouver for all of you.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Yeah. So no, that was, I've said this about a million times. It's weird times. It's weird times. And these heightened states of reality that we live in right now with just what is happening, that is so out of the norm, so to speak, for most of us, is heightening things for everybody, whether it be good or bad, or heightening the parts of us that maybe we're not so proud of necessarily too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, for me, that would be my health anxieties, right? So that's, one thing definitely to talk about. I mean, yesterday, and I'll bring up this story because I did want to bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm not super ashamed by this anymore. And I'll tell you why that word ashamed comes to mind. But yesterday I called Hiiro, and I was pretty upset, and I had just had an experience where I was disappointed in myself for not exercising all the lessons or tools that I've used over the years to cope, not just cope, but hopefully one day heal my health anxiety, or hypochondria, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, so when I say health anxiety, everyone, like that is, maybe it's a bit more PC version of saying hypochondria, but they're almost the same thing, I think. So yeah, so I went for the first time since pre-COVID into the doctor's office. So my doctor's been working by like telehealth, so on the phone for months. And, if I've had something to talk to him about, it's been on the phone. But I decided to go in because I have some skin stuff that I just want to talk to him about. And he's like, well, I kind of want to come in and see. And obviously that makes sense. So I was kind of working myself up to like, okay, like as having health anxieties, like walking into a doctor's office is already kind of nerve-wracking for maybe people like us, because we're already looking for answers that we've already in our heads. It's like people with health anxiety have already diagnosed themselves, right? Like we always kind of go to the worst case scenario. So now we're either getting reassurance that that's not the case, or in our minds, it's a real, like, for some reason, like life or death, like it's just so extreme. So anyway, I'm just saying that because walking into a doctor's office, like I said, is already nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to conquer this. And I've been listening to a lot of things about like neutralizing your fears or your anxiety, and how do you come into a place of that does cause you major anxiety and come to a place of neutrality. And that was kind of like a practice for me. So I walked into the office wearing my mask, right? Because they're mandatory. And there are only like 2 people in there. But I just happened to, it's just my luck, I guess, in a way, that I walk in and like one woman who's sitting there and supposed to screen them before coming in. She's sitting in there and she takes her mask down and she starts blowing her nose, and she's in the other corner, not near me, but I'm like, oh God, like get me out of here. Because then I'm thinking, oh my God, is she sick? Does she have COVID? Am I going to and my brain just starts spiraling because I'm already in this heightened sense. So I'm sitting there, and then another woman walks in and she's having breathing issues. And I'm like, oh my God, like, obviously I hope she's okay. But, the woman asked her about COVID, like, do you have shortness of breath and all these kinds of things? She said, well, no, but I'm having these chest pains. I'm like, oh my God, like why did I put myself in this situation? So anyway, I'm sitting there again. This woman's wearing a mask, but we'll talk about this after my issues with people wearing those plastic masks that don't actually cover your face and they're sitting just off your face. I don't know if you've seen those.
They're like the clear plastic, right?
Yeah, it like makes no sense to me. Yeah, because they're not actually, but anyway, and she's sitting on again, at least 6 feet away. Great. I'm wearing 2 masks, guys.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
That's actually, I laugh at myself because it's not just one, I put 2 on. So anyway, I'm making this story really long, but just setting the stage, I guess. So, I get called in finally. I've been waiting like, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes, which already that waiting has not made it any easier. Mm-mm. So I walk into the actual doctor's office, not the waiting room, and they close the door like normal. And then, of course, you know, I think lots of comics have done this. It's like you wait in the waiting room and then you wait in the doctor's office. It's like there's two waiting rooms, really. Like it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and waiting, and it's probably been another 15 minutes or so. Okay, so my doctor walks in and he's not wearing a mask. And I'm like, he walks in and of course, my blood just starts to like boil and my body gets super hot. I'm starting to almost get these panic attack sensations or symptoms. And I said to him, and he sits down and I'm like, sorry, but why aren't you wearing a mask? Like, because I'm thinking like you've told, like, how can you tell all your clients it's mandatory or your patients to wear masks in the office, but you're not wearing one? And he says, oh, you know, I'll explain it to you in a sec, but he's like, can you sit tight for a little bit longer? Because we have a woman who has heart or chest pains and I've got to tend to her. And I'm like, well, of course, like, what am I going to say? Right. But as soon as he left and things were just kind of heightening and heightening, I just burst into tears. So I'm sitting in the doctor's office, sitting there with my mask on. I'm starting to cry. He had closed the door and I'm like thinking again, there's that real fight or flight. Am I going to fight this? Am I going to not only fight this, but can I stay neutral and ground myself, or am I going to flee? And I chose flee. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So my health anxiety just got the absolute better of me yesterday morning, and I left. And I told the woman, I didn't just like literally run out the door. I told the woman at the front desk, I said, look, and I was crying. I was like, I was very honest about it. So that's where, that's where I think when those experiences happen, to be honest with yourself and even with others is very beneficial, because at least you're not keeping it in. So I did not keep it in. I said, look, I'm having a panic attack. I can't sit here anymore. Can you please have him call me? So I left. Then I literally was just bawling, but mostly because, and this is where we can have a discussion about this, mostly because I was so disappointed in myself for after so many years of, dealing with anxiety and being like, well, Rachel, you did it again. Like you couldn't, handle it, so to speak, and sit there and, try to use all the tools that you've learned over these years. And you fled instead of deciding to fight or find that neutrality to sit there and to, win against anxiety, so to speak. Right. So that's, I called you later and I told you all about that. So that's what happened to me yesterday. I was very disappointed in myself almost the entire day. I did seek out some quote unquote help. I called my therapist. We had a really good conversation about it. Interestingly enough, she said to me, look, Rachel, I mean, you've basically just threw yourself into the fire with, I understand that you want to try to put yourself into situations where you normally would have the most anxiety to teach yourself. Mm-hmm. But she's like, maybe just baby steps. Like, come on. I mean, you just walking into that office and doing that was actually huge.
It was huge.
You're kind of discrediting yourself or not giving yourself credit for certain things that did happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So anyway, so that was, yeah. And I wanted to tell that story because I am trying to be, not trying to be, but I'm very honest about all these things that are going on, because I don't want to hide behind anxiety and let it win in that sense. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and I'm hoping it'll help someone out there to even just say, oh my God, like I dealt with almost the identical situation or scenario the other day. And I beat myself up for days and days. I mean, at least now with me, I can say that I beat myself up for maybe 24 hours. Okay. Whereas everyone out there, like years ago, I would have beat myself probably up for weeks about that one scenario or circumstance. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's important. It's important that you do share these experiences, because, from the very first intention of Getting Jewcy was to pull the mask off mental health and to also really be clear about we're two people that have perspectives and experiences that are of use to other people that maybe we don't know are actually tuning in, or in the future could be listening to these recordings in even 5 years from now, and they'll realize these people were trying to do something that maybe we're helping each other with the intention of helping them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And
No idea.
actually, interestingly enough, I was talking about, hopefully helping people, or, giving something like this to the world, or to even one person. I was thinking the other day, because we had an episode recently of talking about children, about having kids. And I'm not going to get into it. If you want to listen to that episode, you can, or watch that episode. It's out there, about our views on kids and different perspectives. But I was thinking the other day, I was like, you know what? If I don't have kids, which I think people do that in order to find something that they can, love, and obviously bring up, and kind of like, I guess, give to the world, to hopefully make the world a better place. I'm hoping some people have kids for that reason, at least. I'm like, if I don't have kids, maybe this is like my baby,
Yeah.
what else? Like, and that's, I think, why, like, yoga, wanting to give back is so important, right?
Correct.
So yeah, I did think about that
Well, yeah.
recently.
Well, again, I want to add to what you're saying as well, is because that's one reason why I wanted to get into teaching and sharing the practice, is because it's the one thing that I knew that I could make somewhat of a living doing, but also knowing that I can do this and it's my way of giving back in a way that I know I'm able to give back. Because there's been a lot of stuff that's been dealt to me, and there's been a lot of stuff that's been provided to me through circumstance, and also demonstrating my worth of it. But I therefore feel even more burden or grief or stress on my own performance of being a human, to therefore constantly demonstrate that sense of appreciation and gratitude for those gifts, as well as those blows that have been dealt to me, whether if I had control over them or not.
Yeah.
And yoga is one of those consistent gifts that we can provide people, whether if it's just showing up and being there for somebody in how we show up for them emotionally and non-judgmentally, non-violently, like ahimsa, or how we take the ability to be truthful about how we feel to someone or something, and not denying our truth, and therefore suppressing it and even getting sick because we're not honest about something. These practices that go far beyond the physical westernization of the practice are what and I made a post about this last night and yesterday on my personal Instagram at my name, and saying that even like pratyahara, like the fifth limb of yoga, the start of Raja or royal yoga. And just because people are listening, I'm going to go into anyways, but the 8 limbs of yoga, the first 4 considered hatha yoga, which is what most people practice. Even if it's flow, power, vinyasa, it's hatha yoga. Your movement, your meditation, your breath, and then sometimes a little weaving of like the ethics based on who's teaching you and how they're guiding you in the body. The other 4 limbs are Raja, royal, king yoga, more non-physical, more introspective, and helping to achieve ascension, enlightenment, or further clarity in you as a human being, in this body, in this channel. So the ability to remove your senses can also feel you pulling inside. And that gives you the opportunity to look inside instead of being constantly freaked out by your anxiety and by your mindset that's maybe pulling you out of who you truly are inside. Because you don't listen to yourself, right? And I'm constantly having to find that balance of both, because we have to look out and we have to multitask and we have to do several things at once, especially when we're in a job environment, usually more than not, or even when we're crossing the street and we have to make sure we're not going to get run by a car or bump into another human being, especially during COVID and stuff. Like, we're constantly in a place of fight or flight. And you brought this up when you're in the waiting room. And how do we balance these natural human instincts of fight, flight, freeze, submit in the sympathetic nervous system? How do we do this effectively and also not discredit the way our brains are wired? It's never going to go away.
No, and it's very challenging, and it's a constant, like, it's every day something to work on. Like it's very constant. Now it's interesting that you talked about like, you know, well, I don't know if you necessarily said this, but things that are maybe wired into us, our DNA from, I mean, God, think about like as cavemen or whatever you want to, like, I mean, there was constantly like, whether it be this enormous, you know, prehistoric beast that was always around the corner that was literally going to maybe kill you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it was like, I mean, there is something that's very deep inside humans.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In general. Now, with that being said, we probably mentioned this a few times on our show, but we do have this amazing Dr. Rachel Yehuda, who's coming on the show in early December, and we'll hopefully get that. Really excited because she has been at the forefront of a number of high-profile studies that have to do with generational trauma and just delving into the realities of that trauma being very key parts of your DNA, like actually part of your your genetic makeup.
Yeah.
Really excited to hear about that because, and I've of course said this a million times again, both Hiiro and I are grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in that respect. So, you know, I think that we need to be kinder to ourselves too. Just kinder.
We do. We do. And in addition to that, in terms of how powerful a conversation like that is, and, you know, Rachel and I won't say who is joining us in this conversation with Dr. Yehuda. We won't say that, of course, but I think those that are listening to us and that are of our community, I think, and especially within Canada, I think they'll be really appreciative. And even Rachel and I were like, oh my God, really? Like, this is how powerful of a conversation this is. And to be able to share that as a collective about talking about these real scenarios of our culture and our ancestry is something that is pretty, I was blown away. I was like, you want to make the time to talk about these matters that are so close to our core, and helping to share that with our future generations so they understand that we're survivors. We're the ancestry. We're the survivors of our ancestry, right? I think that's a really powerful thing to quote. We are the survivors of our ancestry, and it's our responsibility.
We all are. I mean, and not just to make it about this Jewish thing. I mean,
no.
We all are. We all
are as a universal
background.
No matter if it's Judaism or non-Judaism. It's just
whatever you've gone through in your life, and whatever your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, you know, the whole lineage. I mean, it's true. We you know what? That's a really good way of putting it. I mean, when you do think about it, we are all survivors. Each and every one of us have survived the generation before us. So, you know, that can be a real sense of pride, you know, I think, and not luck, but pride, I guess.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
No, it's true. So I'm really excited for this conversation with Dr. Yehuda as well. And thank you for reaching out to her and discovering her and the fact that we can reach that kind of audience to help bring this awareness of understanding where we come from.
Yes, exactly. And not only that, but I'm hoping to talk to her about like, okay, well now what's next? Okay, we know this. That's great. It's one thing to be aware, and that's the first step. It's always the first step, but like, how do we move forward with this knowledge?
Sure.
Right. And is it something that we can not necessarily fix, but something that we can rise above and use as a tool, maybe to grow, get stronger? Like, what do we do with this knowledge? You know, I mean, I'm assuming we don't just wallow in it, which is sometimes too easy to do, but
it can be easy to, for sure, wallow in information or facts but I think, you know, our generation and the generations that are after us that are alive now, you know, we are the change makers. We are the opportunity to show that there is so much development going on.
Yes.
And that's what's important to realize. Like, I look at even like some of the people that I work with now in my environment, and they're just graduated high school, and I remind myself constantly that I always have this kind of syndrome where I think I'm the youngest, I'm the baby.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Mm-hmm.
And then they realize I'm not. I'm one of the more so-called elder people that are working in my environment, and I don't take that as an insult or as a criticism or as a positive or a negative. It's just a fact. But to understand reference points, even like when I sent you a gif of, this is a kind of a funny aside, but I was sending to Rachel.
Let's bring some humor into this episode. It's been a little bit somber.
Yeah, like I was on break at my other job, and we were just talking about, like, again, the excitement of all the things that were happening right now with our podcast, and just, we can't believe our little humble podcast, which is still going to be humble by default, but
yeah,
but that we are able to expand and to reach certain individuals we never thought would even take an interest in our, even just seeing our name and giving us a response. So anyways,
yes,
we're sending GIFs back and forth. And for some reason, someone doesn't know what a GIF is. It's just like a moving image, like that's usually derived from a movie, a TV show, or some kind of reference point.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just a randomly made custom vector. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, so I sent her this GIF, and it's these two men, I think, that are like dressed in 90s sweaters, and they look really, really outdated. And I said to her, and I just sent her without commentary. And I'm like, hold on a second, what show is this from again? And Rachel's like, oh my God, you just showed your age right there.
Yeah.
Because Rachel and I have like 9 years difference from each other. And I said, hold on a second. No. I know I'm not that young. I know that's Saved by the Bell, isn't it? And Rachel's like, uh-huh. I'm like, Saved by the GIF.
Yeah, no kidding. But it was just like, yeah, and that's just, it's, and even going back to what you said about you being now realizing that you're not the youngest baby in your workplace or whatever it is, and coming to that realization, it's all about getting older. That's just what happens when you get older, right?
But also, yeah. But here's what's interesting, though, is that I can reflect back to when I was working my first real job, I guess if you want to call it a real job, because it gave me a lot of foundation for what I know now. And I was, 21. No, sorry, no, I was 19. And so I can look back and
work
think,
till you were 19?
I had jobs before that.
Yeah,
but in terms of like actually working, more than
full-time
20 hours a week. Yeah, like working a full-time job where I'm working a full 8-hour shift. Like I'm actually getting the reality of what a job is kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
And the job that I was doing was definitely high stress and a huge learning curve, especially if you're not having much prior work experience. Though I freaking thrived. But anyways, yeah, I was a little shit. But anyways, the thing is that when it came to me looking at my leaders, my shift leaders, my supervisors, and so forth, right, I can reflect back. So when I have my team of people that I'm leading and that I'm working with and stuff, I'm able to have a lot of compassion and a lot of sincerity because I know what it's like, and I don't look at myself as being older than them. I just look at myself as maybe having some reference points and some lived experience that might have some additional quality, I guess. Something to provide.
That's so mature of you, though. Like, that's so profound, and so like a lot of people can't do that.
Right. They just kind of think of it as subordinate or like you're under me. And I don't look at that at all.
Exactly.
Not at all.
That's amazing. And that's why I love you, because I'm the same way. And that's what's so great. I love that. It's phenomenal.
Like I've learned so much. I've learned so much from all of the staff that I work with, and it's an intimate team of us working together. But I've learned so much from those that are in the range of 19 to 25. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But it's really amazing. And I've learned so much just in even just behavior or attitude or presence, not even things that are spoken verbally.
Oh, yeah.
It's, or like, for example, like another little funny humor to kind of brighten the tone up from the first part of our episode. which is equally important.
Mhm.
You know, like when someone says, "Hey, can I get your email, please?" Right, and so the customers give me their email to type into our Shopify account, and they say at Hotmail, I'm like, "Yeah, OG original gangster, yeah."
Right?
And then I kind of joke around and I kind of turn to my associate. I'm like, "Do you even know what Hotmail is?"
Oh, come on.
You know, but
Do people still create new Hotmail accounts?
I don't know. I'm sure
I don't
some
know
people
either.
do, but I look around and I didn't say like I don't even say like, do you know? I'm like, you have a Gmail account though, right? They're like, yeah. Did you ever have a Hotmail account? I'm like, I don't know what Hotmail is. I'm like,
Oh, there you go.
right? Or like even
Wow.
I
Okay.
said this as well. Like when we receive inventory, our process is using kind of like what UPS receivers would do, like the
Yep.
scanning
Yep.
device, right? But I looked at this, I'm like, this literally looks like a Palm Pilot attached to a handle.
We've talked about this before. Yeah, you're like, you know what a Palm Pilot is?
And,
Is it what was the stylus with the Palm
yes,
Pilot? Like
yes,
the
and you're
little
tapping, and
yeah
yes,
blonde. Oh
yeah,
my
one,
God.
you
I
have the
never had one of
stylus, and
those,
it's like
but
tap, and you're trying to read the lines like Windows 95, and I'm like,
see,
I
in that
totally get what's happening here. It's not like I'm incompetent by any means, but
no.
this technology is still being used in 2020. Like this is crazy,
And I thought when the Palm Pilot came out, and there was a touch screen, I was like, "What is this? This is
right?
so crazy.
Right?
This
The
is the
Trio,
future." And then not even a couple of years later, it's
something like
like
that.
smartphones. Like I mean, everything is just was just got like super quick with technology. Like
Well, it
bam, bam,
has.
bam.
Well, because it was Palm
So
Pilots, and it was like, well, and then when people was like, "What's a Palm Pilot?" I'm like, basically, a Palm Pilot was everything in one device minus cell reception. You
right.
know,
Okay. See,
and
I
and
forgot about that. It
that's
wasn't a
kind of
cell
how it
phone.
was. But then
Right.
I don't think the first brand that I can think of, whether if they were the first or not, but was Trio, and that's what's like, here's your Palm Pilot, and now it's a cell phone, and it can fit in the palm of your
Okay.
hand.
Yes.
Then from there, that's when we eventually, I don't know how far soon we then saw the iPhone, and we saw
Right.
or even like the sliding cell phones, the flip phones became day of
Yeah.
the past,
Well, Blackberries were
Yeah, Blackberries were very similar to
before
that.
that
Yeah,
even, but
yeah,
I just have to
totally.
share to get people excited about this episode again with Dr. Rachel Yehuda, because
Yes,
we kind of alluded to this, but maybe it was lost in translation. We have
yes.
a special guest joining us in conjunction with Hiiro, because Hiiro and I are special, right? We're not guests of our own podcast, but we have someone else joining us. So there will be 4 people on the screen for the first time. And this special guest is literally a Canadian icon.
Yes.
And I'm so excited because we just got this news yesterday that she'd be more than thrilled to join us in this discussion, because
Yeah.
there's a commonality of her family with the Holocaust as well. And she just gave me a thumbs up with confirming for it. So
Amazing.
sharing that, but not sharing her name and not sharing her picture. So that was pretty exciting. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I know we got really into a few different topics there, but
it all relates.
and that's why we were so excited. Additionally to even just having Dr. Yehuda with us joining us. So
yes, and
Mark,
also
Marion, I did ask you, but I didn't get a response. So too bad.
oh, Mark, you're missing out, buddy. You're missing out. I know it shows that you saw our messages.
Yeah, exactly.
We even left you a voice clip. We left you a voice clip.
Oh, good, but it looks like he saw it, or at least listened to maybe one of them, and that's
Which is huge.
fine, and that's huge.
Which is
and that's
huge.
Totally fine.
He knows your voice exists.
Exactly. So all good.
And Seth Rogen, if you're
one day.
listening to this, just saying, if you're listening to this, Seth, in the future, I just watched your American Pickle movie, so I know if you're brining 100 years or whatever, and now alive in the future of our current generation, and you want to come on, bring that pickle juice with you, buddy. Bring it.
Bring your schmeckle.
Bring your schmeckle and make it kosher. Add a couple cloves of garlic to it too, and you got a party.
Speaking of Yiddish and like thinking, so I think from now on, when I think of any health-related anxiety ailments that I might have, but maybe I've like created this symptom in my head because I'm just, I think I'm just gonna say it in my mind as an old Jewish booby.
Yes.
So I'm gonna and that'll just hopefully, actually, and this is an actual tool to use for people that have anxiety. So and I've just been learning this through the anxiety guy, by the way. Yeah. So I forget exactly the terminology he uses for this particular tool that you can use, but if you have a recurring thought that's just like, over and over and over and over. Sometimes in order to get exhausted by it and just be like, ugh, okay, I've had enough of this, let's move on. Change the tone, either of your voice, of how you're saying it in your head, create it, maybe think of your favorite cartoon character. So make it silly, right? Make it silly. Like, and so that's what I was just thinking right now. I was like, oh God, I think why when I breathe, there's a little funny chest pain. Oh my God, I'm having this, I'm having that. And then honestly though, everyone, I'm pretty sure it's just from exercise. I don't know how to just feel comfortable in my body after I've done exercise and there's some stiffness or some soreness.
Yeah,
From
totally.
now on, I'm just going to say, I'm really bad at accents. I was going to say, try to make it in a booby, like, oh, like, I can't even do it. Like, how would you speak as a booby? I can't even and booby, I'm sorry, everyone, for those of you that don't know what that is. It's not booby, not like my boobies. Booby is grandmother.
Yeah, bubby.
Bubby.
I would probably say, oh, look at that, the ribs are poking out.
It's terrible.
You asked, I delivered.
Oh, and I'm just trying to think of like, oi,
gewollt es schmeckele, schmecker. Yeah.
Oi, gewollt. I got this pain in my chest.
Yeah.
I don't know what it could be like. I don't know. Anyway, try to make those voices silly.
It's true.
Don't take yourself so seriously. Like that's
no.
And hopefully that little tip helps somebody today. I don't know, but just
totally
make it silly, exhaust yourself.
And if you're exhausting. And if you're like me, where you sometimes reread a message you wrote and you wonder how someone interpreted it, or you know, you wonder why they responded to
like that too.
they respond to part of your email or text message, or they just don't. And sometimes you'll see that they've seen something. I've had to continuously realize that we always process information differently. So, and we tend to think that our way of processing is the way that we expect others to process it. And that's not the case whatsoever. And chances are, if we're thinking of something, 95% of the time, they're not thinking about it whatsoever. Nope. It enters their brain and it goes, and we're the ones thinking about it for ages, unless if we let it go or we ask about it, and then they clarify that, no, you're in your head, you're overthinking everything. Even my best friend who was on the show earlier with us on episode 8, Genevieve Clements, who's one of my dearest friends, and I asked her flat out, and she's like, yep, Hiiro, like, you're an overthinker. And my mom will say, you speak a lot, you overthink everything, and that's not a bad thing, but that's just the way you cognitively have learned and how you function. And so you just need to remember that it's okay, but to realize that most people are not thinking the same or feeling or even conscious of anything that you're conscious of once it's in and out in the moment that it happened. Well, and that's what I remember with anxiety. I remember that if I'm thinking about this so much, what are the chances that other person is giving that much of their energy and time to what I'm thinking about? Like, do I have that much time to process that information? Which is why I like to be busy, and why I'm more of a workaholic, because I can process stuff, but then if I'm so busy to the point where I can process it, but it doesn't linger, I have to let it go. Totally. And not to say, I'm not trying, I was going to use the word delusional. I'm not saying that you're delusional, but I'd say the majority of our thoughts when we start to overthink, they are not reality. They are stories we're making up, stories that we've created based upon past experiences. Correct. Based upon mostly past experiences, actually, or trauma. That's the PTSD that I mentioned. The PTSD. Yeah. And so, what I've tried to tell myself at times is, or ask the question, is this the truth? Is this reality? Not even the truth? Is this 100%? Can you tell me this is 100% the truth? Do you know that? Are these the facts? 9 times out of 10, I would guess that you're telling yourself, actually, no, I don't have fully those facts to support this fear or this thought or this anxiety. So, that definitely helps as well. It totally helps. Yeah. It totally helps. And even you saying that reminds me as well. Relax. Oh, well. Just relax. It's okay. Yeah. You're fine. And it's, what you said to me yesterday? You said, it's okay not to be okay. Yep.
And that's also okay, right?
And that's the most powerful. And you know what, though? I actually got that line, and I'm not much of a music person. You're definitely more of a music listener and like
Mhm.
follower than I am.
Love
But
it. Yeah.
one of my favorite songs, actually, and it wasn't even the original artist, it was a cover by a girl named Jillian Jensen,
Mm.
who was a contestant, one of my favorite contestants. I cried when I would watch her
Mm.
on the second season of the X Factor USA,
Mm.
because it only had 3 seasons, and then now it's still in the UK and stuff, and Australia. But when Simon had it produced in the States, the second season, you can look it up on YouTube if you want. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. Jillian with a J, Jensen with a J, so Jillian Jensen.
Mm.
But her cover of "Who You Are" by Jessie J.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll look that up.
and so
There was a lyric that says it's okay
mhm,
to not be okay, something like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I don't know the full line of the lyrics, and in case if we get, I don't know what the right word is. If we get copywritten or whatever from saying a lyric for some reason, I'm not going to say it. But if you are curious, it's okay not to be okay. And something like that, in the way that the tone it was sang by Jillian Jensen's voice, really, really hit me deeply. And I remembered that.
Jolene Jensen?
Jillian, Jillian, and
Oh,
then Jensen.
Jillian. Good
Jillian Jensen.
Lord, people. I'm not getting that old. I did not hear that. I heard Jolene the whole time.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of
Jillian.
Dolly Parton. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, when I said that too, I actually kind of thought about her lyric, and I thought about her tone. I'm like, it's okay not to be okay, because most of the time we're not okay.
No.
And that's okay to admit too.
Yeah, it's one
getting by.
Totally.
We're just getting by.
Right. And then one more thing, I'm just gonna, because we'll wrap it up here in a second. I could just this is the thing, we could just chat forever and ever. So don't know if everyone wants to be like
we're just that,
for 24 hours straight.
We're just awesome. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. But just back to making assumptions or creating stories of what other people are thinking, or how they're reacting, or what their what their tone actually might be in an email or whatever that might be. I forget what the percentage is, but it's like a really high percentage of most of the time, they're not thinking about you at all. They are being, just to use the word selfish, they're thinking about themselves. Most of the time, people are thinking about themselves, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So they're not even thinking about you. And somebody, actually, a therapist of mine from years ago said, when I started to take on other people's feelings or emotions, or this is a little bit different from what I'm just talking about, I would get really upset about something that maybe my dad was going through or something like that, or with my parents this is a whole other topic of conversation. My parents divorced when I was in my early 20s. So she said to me, Rachel, what they're going through, what someone else is going through, has nothing to do with you. And you have no right to take their emotions. That's theirs. They own those. You don't have not that she was trying to scold me, but it's you don't, those are not yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are theirs. That's their thing. They own those. You don't have a right to take them on and own them. I don't know. There's something about the way she said that. It was oh my God, you're right. That's their shit. And I don't have a right to take that on. That's theirs. Right. So
exactly.
Anyway.
It's amazing. Whew. It's amazing. This was a juicy conversation. This is good.
Yeah. And sometimes, actually a lot of the time, people that are listening or watching, when we have these conversations, the two of us, we might have a very small schmeckle of an idea of what we might want to talk about, but nothing is scripted. So I don't have any notes around me. I don't this is very candid, very raw, very much just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And we find, I don't know, it just seems to hopefully work. So, we're doing it this way until it doesn't work anymore.
It works for us. And I also, Rachel, because Rachel's like, should we prepare for anything? Should we ask any questions? Like, you know what? Go for it if that's your way of how you cognitively think. But for
Mhm.
me, I'll be able to pull questions or have answers or have inquiries just by hearing the person speak and talk. And then that way, when we get to talk to these people, because again, as I said, some of us know more about the guest, some of us know less about the guest. I kind of like that factor, to be honest, because then we might ask them questions that they're not used to being asked because we don't know anything prior. And so it's kind of fun to not intentionally throw a guest off guard, but for them to think, huh, like I haven't thought of a question like that. I haven't thought of a discussion that might be the same way as that. And that comes from partially kind of that ignorance factor of not knowing someone from a previous state, but still knowing what they do, what they're known for, what they
Right.
specialize in, and what's important to them. It's important to know that information. But in terms of saying, like, so tell me about this time when you and so did this, or tell me about a time when, you know what I mean? It's like when you go to a celeb on a red carpet and they expect to hear, okay, they're going to ask me about my love life. They're going to ask me about what dress or what suit I'm
Or a
wearing.
job interview. I mean, that's
Right.
exactly what it's like.
Right. And so
So
so you want to find the balance in having knowledge of who you're sharing your time with and having on your show. But you also want to make sure it's not so rehearsed or scripted that they also feel like they don't know what to expect, because then it makes it exciting for them as a guest and for us as hosts,
totally.
right?
Well, because I also think that if you have something like, and there's a few times that I have had a few notes of like things that I just wanted to make sure I did ask, not forgetting because there's something that I really wanted to know the answer to. But
Yeah, totally.
yeah, but otherwise it kind of just feels like maybe that the person that's doing the interviewing is not actually listening, because all they're
Right.
doing is trying to get through a series of questions. And I saw actually very recently there was an interview with Sacha Baron Cohen, Borat, and because of that movie just coming out. And there was an interview he did with some American morning news show, and the woman wasn't even listening. Like he was had these great anecdotes. He was talking about the movie and he was talking about his co-star, and she tried to interrupt just with the next question. She wasn't even listening to him. And so I was like, man, like you're really on TV, and I don't know, it was very fascinating.
Well, you also wonder as well if that person that was interviewing, if they were being directed by their boss and saying, you need to ask all these questions,
Yes.
only give them this much time per answer, and if they start to go over, then you just start the next question.
True.
We also don't know the full story of it, and it would be unfortunate if that broadcaster interviewer, if they were actually the one that was indicating the pacing and the questions, and they genuinely were not listening, because that would be even more disheartening.
Maybe they genuinely didn't care about him.
They
Like some people
they
have
might
guests
have
on
not.
there they're not even as interested in. So it's just like, okay, let's get this done. But
Yeah,
it was a very fake, like I loved his answers and because I just love him.
he's great.
I love him.
He's great.
But her mannerisms and just, it was so fake. It was just, anyway,
Crazy, right?
it was crazy. But in any case, we can wrap this up if you like,
Yeah,
dear
no,
friend.
totally. This has been great, and as I mentioned, like we have guests on the show, and then Rachel and I also want to ensure that we also have moments, whether if it's in between having guests that are confirmed and coming on the show, or even if they are lined up, we want to make sure that we have our discussions as well, just the two of us, because
Mhm.
it is getting juicy with Rachel and Hiiro and friends and guests. But it's also getting juicy with Rachel and Hiiro because we have a lot to share and to provide interesting feedback or insight on. And so I think that's a unique angle for us to have with our show.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
we appreciate you tuning in, even if it's for 5 minutes or if it's the whole episode, or maybe you hear something and you share it with a friend that you think might be more connected. We're not here to please everybody. We're just being ourselves. We're just being us. And we figure that if we're feeling and being ourselves, that someone else is hopefully doing the same or trying to be just as authentic as we aspire to be. So
Beautifully put. And we
Thank
do
you.
have some, and after actually this episode, we do have a number of guests that are lined up. So
We
there's some
do.
juicy, very different guests from each other, coming from different walks of life and different industries. So it'll be very, very juicy.
Yes, and also I do want to say this. I do want to say this. Stay tuned for a brand new introduction and outroduction for our customized theme music, which we've been working on with an incredible close old friend of mine who is a very talented musician and songwriter and singer and like maestro, I would say. She would probably be doing this right now. Like, I'm so embarrassed, but I won't say anything more than that. But if you are listening to our show, we hope you really like it, because me and Rachel listened to it last time. We're like, this totally summarizes like the tone, the context.
15 seconds, and I think I loved it, and it's original, so it's
super original.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. So I just wanted to leave that on the note too, is that we are super excited, and we also have
thank you for
a customized our own branding and our own logo in the development too. So we can't wait to share that with you too whenever we have a chance to present it. But it's all in the works. It's getting official. Ah!
Very exciting. Okay. We'll just go. We'll leave on that positive note about continuing to grow and moving forward.
Yes.
Shall we
planting
all?
The seeds.
Let's just, I was going to go back to the States again, but I'm not. I'm going to say continuing to grow and moving forward. And what the fuck? Like, please, let's, I mean, I know we're not American. We're not in the nightmare that they all have been the past few years, but just praying for y'all down south.
Yes, and that's all I can say. I pray for all of you too, but if we get more American immigrants here, all I can say is that American men, in my experience from traveling into the States, are way more direct, way more communicative, and if they want something, they go for it. So hit me up, boys, if you're coming into Canada, because I'm ready, and I will definitely take advantage.
And we welcome you. So yeah,
I mean, welcome you, especially the gays. Especially the gays. Come to me.
That's the interesting thing, because I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, oh my God, like, if this goes in the direction that I'd say, I don't know. I don't even know if most of us feel this way anymore by the way the polls and the election's going, but a lot of us feel if it does go in that orange guy's direction, then there'll be people crashing the immigration site again, I think, to Canada.
And Canada said that I read a headline, I didn't read the whole article. Canada is anticipating that and supporting it.
Jesus. Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that, but we support you. We are sending you all the love from Vernon and Vancouver, and
we'll be your emotional support humans, or emotional support Canadians. Did you see that new was kind of going viral right now? Some guy on Twitter talked about he would be the Americans' emotional support person. Wow. And he wrote a really cute tweet about it, and it kind of just went viral overnight. Wow. So a lot of Canadians are putting it out there and saying, we will be your emotional support Canadians.
Totally. And I'll be your Canadian order husband in the making. So just saying, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you.
Okay.
All right. We'll leave it there, but have a good rest of your morning, and
thank you.
We will talk very soon.
And everyone, stay safe, stay as sane as possible. I think I said stay sane to one of my yoga students, and she goes, what are you just assuming that I'm gonna be sane ever in my life? Like, maybe I kind of like to be a bit insane. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Sure. Why not? A little bit of insanity never hurt anybody.
No, a speckle of insanity.
Schmeckle. Alrighty.
Sanity.
So many made up words. I love it. Okay.
We'll talk soon.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye. Mwah. Kisses.
Bye.